While that may be true, it is okay to intend to put a set of policies and programs in place, but you must have a realistic set of policies, and there has to be a movement from intent to reality. Therefore, while you may be able to talk about pillars of growth for an economy, pillars of growth for a society, pillars of development, what is extremely important as any party contesting an election is to be able to deal with the small things affecting the people immediately. Therefore, the real difference between the manifestos of the Barbados Labour Party and that of the Democratic Labour Party is simply that we have identified that there are things in this country that have to be addressed immediately before we can talk about transforming our society and our economy. In this regard, we have been able to identify that measures must first be put in place to address the cost of living. Measures must also be put in place to address tax relief. Measures must be put in place to give Barbadians greater spending power, and measures have to be put in place to restore confidence to the Barbadians and the Barbadian business people. In this regard, I come to you to speak to the need to prosecute the government first and foremost on the promises made in the last election. You were promised that the government had the solution to priority number 1, cost of living, priority number 2, cost of living, and priority number 3. But since 2008, not because only of any international recession, but because of the policies implemented, especially in the year 2010, you have had to endure rising cost of living to the extent that in the absence of an increase in salary, certainly for public sector workers, and in the case of private sector workers, a cut in salary for some, or a reduction in the work week, you have had to endure a reduction in your standard of living. It is a fact of life. Barbadians are worse off today than they were in the year 2007. I therefore tell you that any manifesto worth reading must first of all address the immediate needs of the citizens of the country. It is therefore within the bosom of this manifesto that we have identified core policies such as cost of living, restoration of fiscal order and prudence, putting money in your pocket, tax relief, and incomes policy, and the need to address the energy pricing policy in Barbados. It is therefore in that context that I bring to you tonight a manifesto that has been designed to ensure and guarantee that we, on this side, have put in place such measures to do those things that have to be done immediately before addressing the bigger medium to long-term needs of the economy and the society. In the area of cost of living, we have determined that unlike the other side, if you can recall, which in the year 2008 promised you that they would remove the VAT on the electricity bill, but if they had done the research necessary, they would have discovered that in fact it would have cost the government between $80 to $85 million to be able to make any such policy a possible thing. In fact, this year, and this started 2 years ago, we have been able to do the kinds of research to put you in a position where we can now remove or reduce the value-added tax on your electricity bill back to 15%. But it does not stop there. We have also identified that the fuel adjustment clause is too high, and as a consequence, we are going to reduce the profit margin of the Barbados National Oil Company to be able to pass on to you a reduction in your electricity bill. As a consequence, therefore, we are seeking to address in a frontal way the issue of cost of living in this country. Because if you understand energy, energy is like the blood in your body. It runs through almost every sector in the economy. Whether it is transportation, you need energy. Whether it is supermarket, you need energy. Whether it is your home, you need energy. If you are in construction, you need energy. And while I accept the need to move towards some kinds of alternative energy, I am telling you that it sounds romantic in some areas to me, and that the first need in an energy policy, whether it is renewable energy or existing energy, is to make sure that energy costs are falling rather than rising, so that any measure, even to ensure that renewable energy is going to become a sustainable part of this economy, is to ensure that some benefit is passed on to the people in the form of reducing prices. But we have not stopped there, because we also recognize that the people of Barbados have suffered over the last 4 to 5 years as a direct consequence of having to pay additional taxation in an economy that has been shrinking. Therefore, I would hardly see anyone in the crowd who can raise their hands and tell me that they have had increases in salaries over the last 4 to 5 years that have been able to match the increase in cost of living of 35% since the year 2008. There can be no one in this audience who can say that in 2009 they received an increase in salary to match the increased cost of living. There certainly can be no one in this crowd who can tell me that in the year 2011 they got an increase of 10% in their salary to be able to match the increased cost of living. Now, if your salary is not increasing, but food prices are rising by over 35%, your electricity bill has gone up by over 68%, your water bill has increased by 60%, your insurance costs have been rising, and your incomes have remained fixed for the most part, then you certainly are worse off under this administration. I come to you tonight, therefore, to tell you that the Democratic Labour Party has to be prosecuted, first and foremost, on the galloping cost of living, the high unemployment that has attended this economy over the last 4 years, and the rising national debt, before we can even begin to think about any manifesto, programs, and policies. I also come to tell you tonight that we bring hope to you, because we have sat down, done the research to ensure that we can give you back some tax relief without causing any harm to our fiscal affairs. And here's how it would happen. We have identified that we can afford to give relief to Barbadians to the tune of $90 million in the first fiscal year after the 21st of February election. We have also identified that we can reduce the profit margin of the Barbados National Oil Company by as much as $40 million to guarantee that at least $130 million will go back into the hands of Barbadians to cause additional spending in such a way that the government receives additional revenue from that spending. In fact, people in Barbados, for every $100 million spent in the economy, the government receives as much as $28 million in additional revenue. Therefore, in tax relief program of $90 million, in fact, causes a net revenue loss of about $60 million to the government. We have therefore identified that in the first year after the 21st of February, that we will so conduct our capital works program that we will rely on concessional financing that is now available by the European Union, and that we will put a system in place to guarantee that we move towards financing our capital works using public-private sector partnerships. Those PPPs are designed in such a way that you can introduce a policy or a measure costing $100 million using a private sector partnership in such a way that you do not have to account for the entire $100 million in your first year of expenditure. Because according to the new accrual system that we have put in place in government, you do not allocate an investment in a capital works program like a flyover of $100 million in 1 year. You do not account for it in 1 year. The way it is done is that you allocate that expenditure over the life of the capital program. So therefore, if you were to spend $100 million on building flyovers in Barbados, and that project was being financed through PPPs, the accrual system which we have introduced says that you will now take that $100 million, divide it, say, by 25 years over the life of the mortgage, and allocate $4 million per year for a capital works program that costs you $100 million. Under our previous system of expenditure, where you use a cash approach, you would have had to look for or assign that $100 million in the first year of the capital program. So in essence, if the government had in fact been in a position to be able to put capital works programs in place over the last 4 years since the introduction of the accrual accounting system, that the government would have been able to allocate the capital works program across the lifetime of the project. The problem is that this government has presided over the worst fiscal position we have ever had in the history of this country, to the extent that they have not been able to even build one road. In fact, the major effort at road building in Barbados has occurred in this constituency just outside of, not cost you less, well, cost you less now. That, by the way, was conceived under the last administration. But because the government is in no position to conduct a capital works program, that project could not be executed. In fact, I invite you to look for one road that has been built in this country over the last 5 years. When you find it, let me know. The problem is that they have so compromised our fiscal affairs that we have had to borrow in excess of $40 million per month to simply pay civil servants. When we were saying this, the government said that we were only talking nonsense. Then the Minister of Finance, who is now known to be a compulsive liar, last year admitted that he was borrowing money to pay 7,000 civil servants. He said that. People, I don't want to dwell too much on him because this period in our history is a very serious period. So we have come to you with policies and programs to assist the people of Barbados first. And that is what a manifesto has to do. A manifesto, first and foremost, must address the immediate concerns of the people. And those immediate concerns have to be addressed through strategizing. When you get to the more lofty issues, the issues of putting this infrastructure in place, putting this system in place, that constitutes your medium-term program. And I come to you tonight to tell you that we are in a position where we can make a difference because we have studied the matters affecting Barbados. When I tell you that the Right Honorable Oinafa entrusted me with the responsibility to coordinate the manifesto, and that I took that job seriously, it is because I understand what is required for us to get out of the present misery that we're in. It is not simply an accident. May he rest in peace. Came in 2008, at the end of 2008, and introduced a budget that raised as much as $110 million in an economy that was shrinking, In fact, you can recall that Oinafa in that election told the people of Barbados that clouds are on the horizon as far as the economy is concerned. He was honest with the people. But the focus of the Democratic Party was on land. And that modus operandi is now still being employed in this general election. The government cannot come to the people and present a case of performance to gain re-election. Therefore, the government has decided that the best way is to use the emotive route. Even as you saw in the slide, when the Minister of Finance admitted to a privatization program, and the opposition, with its maturity, decided to engage the public of Barbados in discussion, and then once the other side saw that the opposition had made a move to explain the issues to the public, they then decided, especially Chris Sinclair, that 4 members of the Barbados Labour Party, Owen Arthur, Anthony Wood, Tyrone Barker, and Clyde Maskell met at the University of the West Indies and conceived of a program to send home 10,000 people. Now that is ignorance, because we have been saying it all along. It makes no sense in this economy to send anyone home. We have to increase the spending power of Barbadians to guarantee that businesses once again have access to income, to guarantee that businesses once again can program for the future, to guarantee that businesses once again are in a position to make profit, such that they can reinvest, such that they can make investments to employ the people of Barbados. Take it from me, it is never the case, if you're thinking about doing the right thing in an economy, for a government to become the employer of first resort. It has happened. It happened in Jamaica. It happened in Guyana. And the reason why this cannot happen is because the government is not in the business of producing anything to earn income or even to earn foreign exchange. A government survives on the back of its people. That is the households, the businesses, the foreign businesses, and others. So when a government decides that it wants to become the employer of first resort, it has then to tax you excessively. And this is what happened in the year 2008, 2009, and even into the year 2010. So I come to you tonight to tell you this, that we cannot escape this environment simply by wishing for the international economy to improve. It does not make sense to have a government, and the government rests on its laurels, then comes and tells you that it has to await Obama or has to await the UK in order for us to be able to get out of a predicament. Why would we need a government if we have to rely only on the external circumstances to help our people out of misery? It does not make sense. And in that respect, I tell you this, we, contrary to what is believed, I think, from what I've observed, that Owen Arthur and the rest of the team understand that, in fact, we are in a position where the future looks exciting because it presents challenges which we look forward to resolving. In fact, contrary to what is being said in Barbados, this is a time to assume the governance of Barbados. This is a time to rescue the people of Barbados. This is a time to offer relief and hope to our people. This is a time, therefore, for us to give serious men a chance to do serious work at a serious time, because, believe it or not, come the 21st of February, Thursday, the decision that you make will determine whether or not we as a country make progress or whether we go into the hands of a group that does not understand the fundamental issues confronting this economy, this society, and does not understand the need for proper governance. This is your chance to give yourself the relief you need to ensure that you provide a better tomorrow for the people of Barbados. Good night. May God bless.
Friends, we have promised you that we would put money back into your pockets. We believe that it is important, if we are going to ensure that life is better for you, that we give you some money in your pockets. And we believe the way to do that is by ensuring that we have the right economic policies to stimulate this economy. Do you know what Frandel Stewart thinks about putting money into your pockets? Listen to this.
Well, if the only issue is putting money in your pocket, we don't got to wait on the government. Drug pushers got money, you can get it from them too. The criminal element has money, you can get it from them too.
Constituency which gave me the honor of serving them in Parliament for 3 consecutive terms. And I am touched by the presence of the people from St. James South and for their very warm welcome. God bless you all, particularly as you go through this election, making your choices. How much time do I have? I have 20 minutes, and I really want to make use of them in a very careful way. I want to speak to 2 issues, and then I want to deal with some aspects of the manifesto. In Barbados tonight, you have to make a decision about whether you believe that the Democratic Labour Party has, in the last 5 years, behaved in a way in which you would have confidence that going forward in the future, they are able to craft a strategic direction, a development agenda, a policy framework, a people's program, a projects cycle that will move Barbados from the bottom of the pile where it is now and restore us to the top. You have to decide whether we are going to immerse ourselves in the pettiness which tells people go back to decaying fields, which tells people you should be punished with laughter if you inquire what is happening in relation to the Clico funds, which tells people that you are ignorant, their poached cat. And do you know that on the same day that Chris Sinclair issued the so-called apology to June Fowler, that he turned around and asked at a DLP meeting for somebody to tell him how much teeth Sandra husbands have in her mouth? She have just enough to bite away the constituency from Don Villainous. Tell him I said that. So night after night, they're on the platform insulting people, denigrating people, and not outlining a serious policy agenda. I have said repeatedly, they have a manifesto which they did not fulfill. How could you believe, therefore, anything that is in the present Democratic Labour Party manifesto? They tell us that they have underperformed because the world economy is bad. The reality is that Barbados' economy is growing at less than 1 percentage point, one of the slowest growth rates in the region, while the rest of the region is growing at 3 percentage points. Countries in the world are growing at 5 percentage points. 186 countries in the world, their economies are growing while ours are shrinking. Ours is shrinking. Our tourism arrivals are down, comparable only with Montserrat, which was damaged by a volcano. The rest of the Caribbean, Guyana, Belize, growing at 17% and 10%. St. Lucia and others, 2%, 5%, 7%, 8% growth. And the reason this is happening is because we are saddled with the Democratic Labour Party. It has nothing to do with debt, has to do with their policies, has to do with the fact that they have brought us to an inflation rate of 8.9%. And because they have failed to deliver on the cost of living issue, they don't mention it in their budget at all. And you have to hold their feet to the fire because that is the single issue on which they became the government. They said that the issue was cost of living, cost of living, cost of living. And David Thompson, God rest him in his grave, held up his fingers for emphasis. Tonight, the issue of cost of living is missing from the Democratic Labour Party manifesto, nor have they outlined an agenda for growing the economy or for creating jobs. The Prime Minister is silent on the fact that the international rating agencies have reduced mighty Barbados to a junk bond classification. And because they have not performed well on economic issues, they are telling you this election is not about the economy, it is about values. They are telling you that Frondel is nice, decent, reliable, and has integrity. Sweethearts, this is not a beauty competition where you're going to crown the person Mr. Congeniality. You know, in beauty shows, they have a Miss Congeniality. The person who smiles the nicest, get along with everybody, talk soft and friendly. Yes, please. It is not about that. Either you're going to vote for Mr. Congeniality or you're going to vote for Mr. Competent. And if you're voting for Mr. Competent, if you want cash in your pocket, it has to be us and the Barbados Labour Party. The reason being, the kind of economic strategies that we have outlined, the policies that we are outlining. The fact that he did it before, and I'm going to get to the manifesto. I really want to talk about the manifesto tonight. But I said that there is a single issue that I want to draw to your attention. And it is this. I have some notes here. We are in the most holy season of Lent. The most solemn, serious season within the Christian calendar. And I know some people from St. James South in the Mothers Union. The Democratic Labour Party has said this is an election about values. And therefore, I am raising an issue about values. So those of you who are near your Bibles, turn with me to Romans chapter 13, verse 13. Let us behave decently. St. Paul is writing to the Corinthians, to the Romans, as in the church at Rome, as in the daytime, not in carousing and drunkenness, not in sexual immorality, not in dissension and jealousy. And then in his letter to the Corinthians, the first letter to the Corinthians, he says, but now I write to you not to associate with anyone who bears the name of Christian brother if he is known to be guilty of immorality. And there they are speaking about sexual immorality. Frundell Stewart was a pastor. He is familiar with the letters of St. Paul. He is a prime minister. He alone determines the standards of his government and his ministers. Sitting with him in the cabinet, occupying the post of the Ministry of Health, is a man called Pornville Innes, who was the sole director of a company called eGalaxy, responsible for a website called nakednews.com, which to this day is up and running. It may be blocked from access in Barbados. It's up and running all over the world, where people start to do news broadcasts, and before they're done, all the cats and dogs and everything else at the door for everybody to see. Naked. When he was contesting the nomination in St. Philip, where he first wanted to run, he resigned as director. And after he lost the nomination, he went back on. He has now shown a similar pattern of behavior with a company called Fiesta Catering Incorporated. Now, you may think that this company is responsible for turnovers, cupcakes, great cake, and things so. The company runs businesses called orgasm.com, sexsearch.com, XXXmatch.com, XXXcupid.com, adult online chat rooms. And if you go to Barbados Underground, where all of the information is detailed, barbadosunderground.com, a blog in Barbados. All of the information is detailed. They say that there is pornography, gay pornography, pornography with little children, girls and boys, where pregnant women desperate for money are forced into or somehow agree to be filmed participating in pornographic activity and acts. And that is the company that Don Villeneuve is or was a director of. And in 2011, it shows that in the registry of Barbados, he resigned and backdated the resignation, it looks like, to 2008. And you know who then took over as director? A person called Gail Williams. Gail Williams Innes, his wife. Now, good Lord, when you withdraw from nastiness, but you want the money so bad, you push forward your wife to take the public pressure. And you know why it is public pressure? Because that company, and go on Barbados Underground, has now been served with a court action in the United States, I think in the state or in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Now, I don't care if you do 69, 49, or straight 9 home at you when the nights come. It is between you and God who you do it with. But when a minister of government has a house, his residence in St. James South at 124 Husbands Extension, St. James, Donville O. Innes, is served at his house with an action in the United States court relating to a business called Fiesta Catering, which only cooks up nastiness and pornography. It stops being the business of the private people involved and becomes the business of the country. Because when his name is called, it is Donville O'Neill Innes, Minister of Government of Barbados, who is being dragged before the courts. If Gail Williams wants her names on the documents, that is her private affair. But Donville Innes is paid by the taxpayers of Barbados. And if this is an election about values, I want Frondell Stewart to tell me tonight. I want him to tell me tonight what value he places on the people of Barbados and on our good name as a country, if in fact a minister of his government can be called before the courts in their personal name, Donville Innes, served at their house by marshals on behalf of an international court for a business which engages in pornography. No wonder he could afford to put up the cash to buy Bayview Hospital. No wonder he could spend $250,000 in 5 years to send everybody a birthday card. Will he making real money? People flicking and all kinds of things, making money. If you want to make money, what you do is your business. But the instant that it became a court action, where his name as a minister was going to be dragged through the international courts and Barbados' name with it, that becomes an issue for all of us as citizens. It becomes an issue for the people in St. James South, and it becomes an issue for the Prime Minister to determine what standards his cabinet must have, what standards he is permitting from his ministers, what are the kinds of activities and income-earning businesses he will let them get into in an election which his campaign manager says is about values, not about the economy. And I want the conspiracy of silence in the church to stop. I want them to speak out. William Dugard was hauled across the coals in this country for saying something inappropriate in the House of Parliament. Equally, and they were right, they must now call Donville Innes to task and ask him to say if he is or was a director of Naked News, if he is or was a director of Fiesta Catering, what kind of businesses do these entities carry on? How much money does he get from them as sole director? We don't want to know down to the last cent, but he must now make his involvement clear and must tell us how he is going to detach his name, Barbados' name, from his on the international stage. It is a very serious matter. The mainstream media has not spoken out on it. It has been run on Barbados underground. He has a lot of friends in the media, has gotten a free ride for 5 years. The hospital in bad condition. Old ladies with sore foots about to lose their foot because they cannot afford the medication that Donville Innes has put up so high. Healthcare costs are the highest that has ever been. Doctors in the hospital are complaining about deteriorating standards, and it will benefit him if the hospital deteriorates because he and Alfred Sparman own a company called ADIS, A-D-I-S, Alfred Donville Innes Sparman, and they are to be the new owners of the Bayview Hospital. So if the QEH run down, people will have to come to him. It is wrong. It is a conflict of interest. All the old ladies, the diabetics who can't get their medicine, the people who are suffering. We had an AIDS facility, the first in the Caribbean. Donville Innes shut it down. all of the programs, the kidney unit, dialysis, problems. I don't want to spend a lot of time on Donville. I have time? I have said I said that the mainstream media has given him a free ride. I challenge them tonight to deal with this issue. They licked up my husband and me over an issue that was a lie, and they printed it over and over and repeated it over and over again. If it was me or anybody in the Barbados Labour Party with a pornography business, our feet would have been held to the fire. Be professionals. Do your job. Donville Innes cannot be exempt, and it is not fair that a person who earns an income from this kind of activity should be sitting in the House of Parliament and drawing taxpayers' money. And the Prime Minister said this about values. What value is he putting on his cabinet? What value is he putting on Barbados? What value does he put on you, or sense of respect does he give to you? The children in this community, do you tell them when you grow up, I want you to become a pornographer? Of course not. So I challenge tonight the media to deal with this issue. Don't label him. Pick it up from Barbados Underground, deal with the issue. I challenge the church tonight. We say we are a Christian community in this solemn season of Lent, under the stars that were made by Almighty God. The Bible says that the body is the temple of the Lord. A minister of government cannot be engaged in activity that portrays the temple of the Lord in the worst possible way, and sit in a cabinet with a person led by a person who was a pastor and not be sanctioned for it. Not be sanctioned for it. I want to challenge all of you tonight to deal with this issue. And as I said, it is not a matter at all of personal business, because the instant that it became a court case, it then became the business of the country, because his name is attached to it as a minister of Barbados, and that is of extreme concern. Let me therefore say, I've made the point, I've thrown out the challenge. I will wait to see how the various sectors and the constituents deal with it, because it will indicate what we are prepared to accept as a people and what we are not. Now, let me go to the manifesto. The manifesto, I commend it to you. This Barbados Labour Party manifesto, which is available online. And I want to share with you, in the time remaining to me, some of the provisions. No. 20 more minutes. Oh. Now, when I came, they told me that I had 20 minutes to begin with, but clearly somebody is delayed. Oh, okay. Thank you. Since we're talking about values, let me leave Donville a little bit. Hello. Person waving enthusiastically, I can't see the face. Since we are talking about values, let us not dismiss this issue of Chris Sinclair and privatization. The Dems are running easily the most dishonest and intellectually dishonest and duplicitous campaign I have ever seen in this country. And my parents have been taking me out to political meetings since I was like 5 years old, and I am now 51. So in 46 years of being around politics, I have never seen such an intellectually dishonest campaign. Chris Sinclair said that they were going to restructure and privatize the state corporations. And he specifically said, you heard the clip that they played earlier. He specifically said they were going to privatize Transport Board. They were going to privatize SSA. And they were going to privatize NAC. He said it during the budget. You know, I remember it crystal clearly because I had just flown in from Brazil, where I was one of the leaders of the UN's Rio +20 conference. And I listened. I was sleepy, but I struggled to stay awake to listen to the budget. So I knew he had said it. I was there for, and more than that, he said that he had already got an agreement from the Inter-American Development Bank to fund this privatization program. Frundell was sitting in his chair when Chris Sinclair said this. He did not get up during the course of his speech and say there will be no privatization. He did not speak to the issue. Clearly, that was the policy of the Democratic Labour Party, to privatize these entities. No, day in, day out, they are running ads saying that the Barbados Labour Party said that we are going to privatize and make people pay for these particular things. Good Lord have mercy. If you have been a pastor, do you not elevate your team and your government to a certain standard of integrity and honesty? And every day you see in these ads about his integrity and his reliability and how nice he is. Let me tell you something. Borrow his integrity tomorrow morning and carry it in at Super Center and see if they don't run you out. See what it could buy for you. See how many plates of rice, how many bags of rice, how many pieces of pork. Well, you know I like my pork. How many pieces of pork. If it could give you a fried chicken, there are people down at this corner who fry food when the weekend comes. See if you could carry Frundell niceness to them and pay for food. As I said at the beginning, we are not crowning Mr. Congeniality. We are crowning Mr. Competent. That is what you want in a government. That is what you want in a prime minister. You want a person who, when the country is facing difficulties or crisis, will unpick the teeth and give you some kind of assurance that the government has an agenda that will move you from where you are to an improved quality of life and situation. That is not what we get from Frundell. I was horrified when we received our junk bonds classification for the Barbados economy. Horrified. I had to face, and I said it the other night in Oystons, somebody standing looking me in my face and saying, is this the mighty Barbados? That we were reduced. And the governor of the central bank said, well, it surprised me. I didn't know it was coming. The governor of the central bank. And Sinclair, who had delivered a budget only days before, said it was coming. And he knew it. But never in his budget did he say what were the particular challenges facing the country. He didn't say this classification was coming, nor how the government was proposing to deal with it. And in the matter of the classification, what is most frightening of all is that the international rating agencies are saying that the outlook, at least the projection that they are making, is downward looking, is pessimistic. So what they are saying to you and to me and to the government of Barbados is that the economy is on a slippery slope, heading downwards, and that nothing that the Democratic Labour Party has done to date has pulled the economy back. The time has now come to change the Democratic Labour Party and have a government which can deal with the economy. When Arthur took over the economy in 1994, he said, I am going to create 30,000 jobs. He created 35. He said there must be a graduate from every household in this country. Fronda lost 16,000 jobs. Owes the university $150 million. So I don't know where we are going to be going with university graduates. Owen Arthur left unemployment at 6.7%. It is today at about 18%. He found our foreign reserves at $348 million. Thank you so much. I love it when the men treat me good. Found the foreign reserves at $348 million. Left them at over $2 billion. And with less taxes than you are paying today. Do you know that if when you put, let's say it costs $100 to put gas in your tank, do you know that out of that 33 is tax from the government? Because they raise the VAT and because they increase excise tax from 25 cents to 53 cents. The president of the Barbados Economic Society has said, and you must look, those of you who are online, for the article, it isn't very long, that this Democratic Labour Party administration has collected more income from taxes, more revenue from taxes than any other government in our history. And you did not need the Economic Society to tell you that. You know it. If you run a little small shop in Barbados, your license went up by thousands of dollars. If you had a bicycle, your license went up by hundreds of dollars. If you were going to participate in recreational activity, the cost and taxes on that went up by hundreds of dollars. The licensing for your motor vehicle went up by hundreds. Your land tax by hundreds, by thousands. Road tax by thousands. It is more expensive to live and die in Barbados. You can't even escape the taxes when you're dead, because they're even taxing coffins and everything relating to death higher now. So you did not need the Economic Society to tell you that they were raking in high tax yields. There are. And it is in that context, therefore, that I want to spend some time dealing with the Barbados Labour Party manifesto. And I want to show you by the manifesto, and I'm not going to go into a lot of detail because I know that Barbados is computer literate. You're going to go, you're going to read it online, you're going to get a hard copy, and you will see what I'm saying. Our senior citizens are now under more pressure than ever before. They are paying more for medication, for critical life-saving medicines, particularly relating to the chronic non-communicable diseases of diabetes, high blood pressure, strokes, etc. An intervention for strokes, a special facility to deal with strokes, has been committed to in this manifesto. Seniors will once again get medication free under a Barbados Labour Party government, and they can get it from the pharmacy of their choice. So you don't have to travel to a polyclinic miles from you or far from you. You can get it from the pharmacy of your choice. If they have one in the gas station near you or in a shop near you, that's where you go to get it. We know for a fact that there are people who are exploiting senior citizens. They steal their pensions. They take away their money. They treat them bad. It also happens with people who are disabled, mentally or physically, and people who suffer from Alzheimer's and dementia. The Barbados Labour Party will implement a Seniors Protection Act, which will apply to people with all seniors, the physically and mentally challenged, and to people who suffer from dementia and Alzheimer's, in order to protect our senior citizens in the last years of their lives, to ensure that they live them out in comfort, without being exploited, and without feeling that they have to choose between buying medicine and paying other critical bills. And electricity and water are the highest that they have ever been, because the government has increased water rates by 60%. And instead of doing the critical pipe work and repair and infrastructural program, they're building a new headquarters around which there is controversy and confusion relating to the contract. Rather than improve the infrastructure with the increased tax take, they are using it to build a new headquarters. The Barbados Labour Party is going to reduce VAT from 17.5% back down to 15%. And it will give you an ease on VAT on electricity and food, and a basket of goods will become VAT-free. These are critical changes to ensure that the cost of living comes again within your grasp, that inflation and the cost of living is not galloping ahead of your income levels. These are the kinds of provisions that we will put in place to ensure that you have increased income in your pockets. At page 16, the manifesto indicates that we are going to increase the reverse tax credit to $1,500. So if you work for $20,000 a year or less, instead of $1,200, you will get back from the government $1,500. The government will also increase personal income tax allowance for pensioners to $50,000. So a lot of people who are relying on pension in their senior years to live, and that pension is now taxable, you can see that the taxes are going to be removed. In addition to that, if you live in an area where your house is valued up to $200,000, you will pay no land tax at all. And if you have a house that is worth $350,000, you will only pay land tax on the last $150,000, because the first $200,000 would be tax-free. And in our effort to create an entrepreneurial culture and to ensure that those of you who aspire to owning your own businesses and moving from being employees to employers, if you open a small business, for 3 years your business will be completely tax-free. In order to give you a leg up, to catch your hand, to break even, to make a small profit, to see your way clear, to build this business into a sustainable entity which endures over time. Equally, and I don't know all the provisions by heart yet, so I have to refer to some of my notes. At page 56, now this is where I miss Sonia, because she would have had these pages marked for me. I wouldn't have to be here turning and turning. There are allowing, you can come, sweet girl, come if you want. Allow health and wellness expenses to be claimed as part of a new health care tax credit. So understand, we didn't say we are creating a health care tax. We said that we are giving you a credit of up to $10,000 that you can apply to anything for health care. You need an operation. You have to pay a private doctor to get a little prostate problem fixed up. You feel you had enough problems, you want to get your tubes tied, you want to go to a private doctor. The children get sick, you want them sent overseas for something. The grandmother getting down and you want to find out why her heart giving trouble, but you didn't want her to go to QEH, you want her to see it private. A $10,000 tax credit for health and wellness that you can apply to aspects of health and wellness as you deem appropriate. I already said about the removal of duty and VAT from a basket of goods. It is also intended to specifically benefit diabetics and people who have high blood pressure and other chronic diseases, because these are some of the things that will also be allowed in that VAT-free basket. Diabetic supplements, so health supplements, Sanatogen, Ensure, and those kinds of things that when you have the old people home, you want to give them your diabetes, your blood sugar might be high or low, and you want something. Those are the kinds of things. Low sugar and low fat snacks, which are now subject to VAT and tax. Sugar substitute, equal, and the other sweeteners. All the taxes and VAT would be removed from that. Cereals, peas, beans, food supplements, multivitamins, vegetarian burgers and tofu. So the people in the community that eat till food, them gonna get through good too. All the VAT and taxes are being removed from those. We will introduce a new regulated price monitoring mechanism for the marketplace, applying it to products in the marketplace, to food, to goods that you buy, in order to ensure that you get the best possible price at the point of purchase. Those are some of the provisions being considered and included within this budget. I beg your pardon, within this manifesto. In addition to that, and I think, Glenn? 5 minutes. Okay. One of the, Clyde spoke to it, or some aspects of it. The issue of energy. I want to do a speech on energy before this campaign ends, either tomorrow night or Tuesday night. But energy costs are the basis for almost every other thing in your budget. So if you do not control the price of energy, then the inflation in your economy is significantly higher than it would need to be. When the Barbados Labour Party was the government, we took the view that the Barbados National Oil Company did not have to make a significant profit because it was a government-owned company. Its biggest customer is the National Petroleum Corporation, another government entity. So we took the view, let BNOC have a small profit and let us instead pass the benefit of reduced pricing on to the consumer. And how did we do it? We kept the excise tax low. We kept the VAT at 15%. And whenever, now, because VAT is a tax on sales, whenever the price of the product goes up, the tax take of the government increases. And it stands to reason. If you are paying VAT of 10% on $20, that is $2. And if you are paying VAT of 15% on $20, that is $3. When we were the government, the price of oil was $70 a barrel. The price of oil moved to $100 a barrel consistently under the dams, and then to $147 a barrel in July 2008. That meant that because as the price went up, government was making more and more money in taxes on electricity, on petroleum products, on diesel, because the price of the product was going up. And when they increased the tax from 15 to 17.5%, the government made even more money. And when they increased the excise tax from 25 cents to 53 cents per liter, they made even more money, to the extent that Barbados National Oil Company is making profits in excess of $90 million and has them on a bank account doing nothing with, while you cannot afford to pay your electricity, can't afford to pay your water. Some days got to put down your car, you can't put gas in it. Get lifts with other people. The pricing policy of the Democratic Labour Party is part of what is causing inflation in this economy and part of what is causing Barbados to be suffering in the way it is. Because if you are a businessman, you do not know what price you are going to pay at the pump for the diesel. You do not know what price it is going to be delivered at your company from one day to the next. What is certain is that the tax you are paying, the excise tax you are paying to the Dems is 100% higher than it used to be in 2008. And that the VAT you are paying on it to the Dems is also higher. As I said, if you put $100 in gas in your tank, 33 of that now goes to the Democratic Labour Party. It is unconscionable. And what we used to do in our pricing policy to ensure that you got the best possible prices was to reduce the tax whenever the price went up. The price of the product went up. And the reason we could do that is that we did not lose any money as a government, because the higher the price of the product, the more tax revenue the government gets as a result of the VAT. So when the Dems put their increases in place, It caused significant challenges at the level of the economy and at the level of your pocket. Well, you don't know what a bottle of gas is going to cost. And people say, well, they have given us free bus fares and community councils and free camps. And that is true. But subtract from that what they have taken away in water, in gas, in electricity, in land tax, in your allowances if you are civil servants and other people who are entitled to allowances. Look at what they have taken away. The little freenesses that they throw. The old people talk about throwing a sprat to catch a whale. And that's what they've done. In this election, we have a choice of whether we are going to buy in to the pettiness and the nastiness that we are hearing from the Democratic Labour Party platform every night. We have a choice over whether we are going to stay where we are in economic uncertainty, being unclear where the economy is going to be after the election. And I want to deal very briefly with another issue. 2 minutes. People say that there's conflict in the Barbados Labour Party. I want to remind you that Frondell Stewart has been a Prime Minister for 4 years and has never named a Deputy Prime Minister. Why? I want to remind you that there is a group known as the Eager 11. Now, if you have 21 men in a cabinet, and 11 of them say, we want to get rid of you, that's more than 50%. And the Constitution says that the person who commands the majority becomes the Prime Minister. And Frondell has already said, you cannot plot a coup against a Prime Minister and don't expect that heads gonna roll. So the morning after election, if the Dems win, bear ruction gonna break out. Because the Eager 11, some backing Sinclair, some Eswick, Kelman backing himself, Donville, if he can take his hands away from the activity in which he is engaged in, would like to raise it low enough to say, consider me. And Frondell is fighting for his own survival within the Democratic Labour Party. Mia Motley and I and other people in the Barbados Labour Party have said, whatever has happened in the past, our focus is on community. Our focus is on constituency. Our focus is on citizen. Our focus is on country. Tell me where it is that David Thompson skinned Clyde Maskell out of the leadership of the Democratic Labour Party. Nobody ever make a big issue out of that. Frondell Stewart wrote a letter to the Democratic Labour Party membership and council cursing David Thompson, and then served as his Deputy Prime Minister. Nobody make an issue out of that. All before the campaign, the Dems had out the rumors, Mia Motley gonna spraddle the campaign, wait and see. She canvassing for Sinclair, and she gonna be supporting the Dems, and she joining the Dems. A lot of nasty rumors were out there, yet every day, every night, Mia is fighting for Barbados and the Barbados Labour Party, fighting for Owen Arthur to take back the leadership of the country. Why? Because we know and understand that this is not a contest for Miss or Mr. Congeniality. It is a contest for Mr. Competent. And we have no doubt about the competence of Owen Arthur when it comes to handling the fiscal crisis, when it comes to handling the fiscal deficit, when it comes to dealing with economic issues, when it comes to helping you buy bread, keep cash in your pocket. You cannot carry Frondell's niceness or his alleged integrity, or his reliability, or sense of calm. It does not help you, nor does it help the country of Barbados. It doesn't build anything in a constituency. When you lie down at night and your child cries because your child didn't have a good meal before it went to bed, because you couldn't put sugar in its tea, because you don't know how you are getting to work the next day, because you do not have bus fare, and the light bill is coming at the end of the month, and the water bill is coming at the end of the month, and the debt collector is coming at the end of the week. Nothing about how nice Frondell may be helps you get out of that situation. What we are offering you is a united Barbados Labour Party, ready to serve, ready to rebuild, ready to restore, money in your pockets, or standing internationally. No more will somebody in the international arena look me in my face and say, is this the mighty Barbados fallen so low? We will go back to the stage where we compare ourselves with the top, not with the bottom. You grow up here and your mother tell you, look up, not look down. Set your goals and standards high, Barbados. And this Barbados Labour Party, therefore, is offering this country an opportunity to move from pettiness and nastiness, an opportunity to move from pornography amongst members of cabinet, an opportunity, and I don't mean members of cabinet are engaging in pornography, I'm making that statement in the context of my earlier comments, an opportunity to move from uncertainty about our economic situation, uncertainty about your personal situation, uncertainty about whether you are going to get back your money if you are a CLICO policy holder. And this Barbados Labour Party manifesto commits to giving it back. Frondell says y'all should be punished with laughter, and you know what Sinclair said. This Barbados Labour Party is again making the country the offer, throwing our weight behind a leader who said to the country, go for the gold. Don't satisfy yourself with an also ran. Go for the gold. It is a call to greatness. And Barbados is poised at an international crossroads where we have to build on issues relating to our competitiveness, where we have to outline a sustainable development agenda for our citizens, where we have to determine how a creative, innovative economy can be built in which young people can participate and be compared with anybody at the international standards. How do we get more Rihannas out there? How do we establish the kinds of businesses for which India has now become famous in the IT sector? How do we create new entrepreneurs who can build the economy, who can have a sense of dignity over their capacity to earn? Forgive me. No, sometimes you get these signals from this side. So let me pause and salute Glenn Murray. Working very hard, ensuring that we have these meetings done well and so on, signaling you when to come down from the platform. Now, he signaled me at least 6 times already, you know. And every time he signaled me, then say, half hour more, 10 minutes more, 5 minutes more. So a few minutes ago, he told me, all right, wind up, come down. Now he tell me, go long, talk some more. 3 minutes more. Okay, so there I was, into my ending, think he was dragging me down. If I had known Glenn, I would have spent some more time talking to people about the manifesto, because I really think that this is important, and I was trying to cram what I was saying into the time that I had without elaboration. I want to share with you, therefore, and I think these are important, and I want to share these statistics because I started with them, but I went through them very quickly because of the absence of time and the constraints within which I was working at the time. The Dems in their manifesto do not mention cost of living at all. If you look in the Barbados Labour Party manifesto, it says cost of living, and it says the things we are going to do to address the cost of living, and it deals with cost of living in 3 or 4, in a section specifically dedicated to the cost of living, but then in 3 or 4 other sections. The Dems' argument for re-election is captured in a number of things. I called them in a speech at Oyston's the other night, the myths. And I want specifically to go to those because they are important. No, you see Glenn again. I love him though. Glenn, tell me now, 1 minute. Okay. But is he coming? He's all set waiting on me. Okay. 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 Very quickly then. The Dems' argument is that things are bad all over the world, so they could not do any better. And my response and your response must be that Guyana is growing at 2.8%, Trinidad 11%, Suriname 4.5%, Haiti 5.6%, Bhutan 8.1%, that's a small island developing state too, Malta 2.9%, the Caribbean is growing overall, in 2011 3.9%, ours was 0.5%. The tourism arrivals going up all over the Caribbean. In Barbados, they are coming down, even though we are drawing from the same markets. So the notion that things are bad all over the world, so they have to be bad here, is a joke. The next thing the Dems are saying is that we left them with a lot of debt. The problem is not debt. The problem is that they have taxed the economy in every sector so harshly that the sectors are not producing. That is the problem. So that they created $2.75 billion in debt in only 5 years, while we created $5 billion in debt in 15. So they have, if you work it out on a ratio basis, created far more debt than we have. The problem is that they cannot manage. Thank you, Skipper. That's the critical thing. Equally, the critical sectors of the economy are not producing. So that their argument that things are bad all over the world, I've just explained that. That tourism is bad everywhere, I've explained that. That the problem is that we left debt, I have tried to explain that. And had I known, though, that I would have had more time, I would have spent time on it. We are not offering you a magic wand. We are offering you management. And that is the difference. And therefore, the country has a choice. All of you in this constituency and all over Barbados on Thursday can make a choice. Continue in uncertainty. Get into the pettiness where you tell people, go back to the cane fields. The pig nipple's sore and we want to drag you off. All of these are statements made by the Prime Minister. We can either continue with that pettiness, or we can answer the call to greatness that is being thrown out by the Barbados Labour Party. It is not being thrown out for us as a group. We are throwing it out for the community. We are throwing it out for the constituencies. We are throwing it out for the citizens. We are throwing it out for the country. We are throwing it out for you and for your children and for your future. Let us move from junk to greatness. That is the call and the mandate and the manifesto and the agenda and the policies and the programs and the people in this party. That is what the Barbados Labour Party intends to do for Barbados. But the choice is in your hands. Choose wisely on Thursday.
Crime son, dirty Andrew.
Grab soldier again. Right now things dread, we voting for the red. Right now things dread, we voting for the red. Right now things dread, we voting for the red. Bears open your eyes and hold on your head. Right now things dread, we voting for the red. Right now things dread, we voting for the red. Right now things dread, we voting for the red.
Things getting hard, hurt in my head.
We need a change.
Barbados don't take it no more.
We need a change.
Senegal get news for the poor.
We need a change.
The youths gonna settle the score. We ain't standing for them no more.
We voting bees. B is the better way of life. If you vote for the bees, that is the best choice. The youth won't work. The youth won't.
An excellent presentation by Liz Thompson. 63 minutes of competent, deep, intellectual speech. Let us give another round of applause for Liz Thompson. Friends, without a doubt, we have, as the Member of Parliament in the constituency of St. James Central, one of the laziest members of Parliament in the history of this country. But I want you to know that the Barbados Labour Party's candidate is young, articulate, energetic, and he is determined to ensure that you, the people of St. James Central, have the very highest level of political representation. Friends, join me in welcoming to the podium the candidate for the Barbados Labour Party in St. James Central and your next parliamentary representative, Kerry Simmons.
For the people in St. James Central, we voted Kerry. Sing the song. We do love Kerry. But this man is so dependable. If you find yourself in real trouble, we voted Kerry. We do love Kerry. Kerry Simon, expose the metal dump. We voted for Kerry. We voted BLP. Kerry Simon.
A pleasant good night to you, Redmond Village Labour Party family. God bless you. I was just told that I could take my time and talk to the people. Now, I want to begin by saying to you from the very bottom of my heart that 2003 was a time when you bestowed upon me one of the greatest honors that can be bestowed on anybody. You gave me the right to represent you and the privilege of representing you in Parliament. And it meant a lot to me for a number of reasons, not least of which that unlike the man who I was running against, I did not come from this constituency. And therefore, it meant that you had reposed the level of confidence and trust in me. And I began a journey with you in the certain intention that I did not want to disappoint. And it was in reflecting on that 2003, 2008 journey today that I had reason to think of some of the many achievements which we as a people made together. And Redmond Village, let me begin with you, because I remember well the difficulty we experienced over there in Bagatelle and the mighty struggle in order to create a sporting facility that was acceptable. It was more like the road you're standing on here, sloping downhill, a lot of rock surface, and we took it and transformed it, graded it, put floodlights on it, fenced it, started a third division football team, and that team grew to Premier League. And I feel that that was a journey that meant something to this community. And I wasn't satisfied, and we went down to Hoyts Village. And in the Hoyts, there was no playing field. And I laugh when I remember Annette and one or two others telling me that, Kerry Simmons, we can vote for you. But it has got to stop this foolishness about big strapping men with 9-inch wood and passing water behind a dumpster tree. That we are only women made of flesh and blood, and we cannot deal with that kind of thing. And we fixed it, and we got the pavilion. And it may not have been a state-of-the-art pavilion, but as Owen Arthur tell me, the budget is tight. You can get it fast at short notice, and you can come back and expand on it. And then we went down to Fitz Village. Same thing as out here, sloping field, a lot of rock surface. And we graded the field, put in a hard court. Sporting infrastructure was put in this constituency. And the same thing with amenities. I felt that I had to do my best to give to you that which some of the greats who represented you did not give. And that was the tall standard by which the little young boy was being judged. Because it was up through here that had none less than Tom Adams, none less than David Simmons, none less than Cynthia Ford. And the little young fella used to hear about all the good things that they did. So I had to do some good too. And we put in natural gas in Redmond Village. Not what this clown did over yonder, put in a pipe, but we put in pipe with gas running through it. And I remember going down to the transport board. And I say these things because I want you to understand how I envisage representation and how I sought to conduct this journey of representing people. And I went with Andela down to the Barbados Transport Board, and we got on a bus and told the people we are coming with the general manager, he was with us, told the people we coming in Redmond Village, and we will find a place for a bus to turn around in Redmond Village because they were telling us it is impossible. And we made the impossible possible. And it was with a similar approach. We put the natural gas in Seaview, and then we started on the program of infrastructure and road building. And I felt good when Owen Arthur looked at me and tell me, Kerry Simmons, in 4 years, you have had 16 roads in your constituency. Why do you keep humbugging me about more roads? And I wasn't satisfied. We began to put in some here in Redmond Village. And we succeeded in transforming Fitz Village for the first time in most land. There were roads placed and pathways placed where before people could not walk without 2 pairs of shoes. We did it in Matthew Drive in Holders Hill. When you go down Holders Hill, transformation of Matthew Drive. And we came here in Redmond Village and began a project to put in 8 roads. And I say these things to you because I took a certain sense of pride. And let me say to you, you heard an excellent speech just now from Elizabeth. And Liz was one of the people who began that process in Matthew Drive. Had absolutely nothing to do with anybody in the Democratic Labour Party. But if you look at this fraudulence that I hold in my hand, I can throw it away because it has the value of toilet tissue, but it used toilet tissue to boot. But you know, he starts out on page 1 by calling himself a man of integrity. Then he shows you a picture of roads that were built between 2003 and 2008, and Liz claimed to having done them. Now, I ain't wasting no time with hearing that. The point is this. We had a lot of achievements. But what cuts me to the core of my gut is the attitude, the transformation in attitude that you must deal with. Now, I had no problem in getting beat in the last election. That is the will of the people, and all of us who stand here and ask for the vote of you there understand that we may win or we may lose. That is the voice of the people, and the voice of the people is the voice of God. We stand and fall by that. But I knew what it was to get off of my backside from in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Tell an ambassador, hold aside, star, you got to wait. We pausing this meeting because I got a call from inside Hoyt's Village where we building a road. And people call me and tell me, Kerry, the rain falling out here and the tractor driving and the tractor sleeping. And I went down there and knocked upon the glass. Kevin Blackett would have been present. He can attest to that. Wake him up. Tell him you're on a job, man. You are here not to humbug the people. 3 weeks you've been here doing with this tractor, playing around with it. Get the thing done so I could get the road put in for the people. That was the attitude that I carried. But now, what do we have? We have a situation where roads that were left started, but not yet completed. In Redmond Village, especially, in 2008, are in the same state today that they were, worse, that they were in 2008 on the 15th of January when the election took place. Not touched. And look back at them. And that disgusting reptile, George Cornwall Hudson. Cornwall. When you ask him, but Skipper, what you gonna do with the road? I ain't building a road for the park, Kerry Simmons' park he car. As though he is doing me an injury. People falling down. The young lady over there with the light flashing on her chest would tell you how many times people fall down through that gap that her family live on. And now we have, as recently as yesterday in Olive Lodge, a man who voted against me last election. And let's hear this. Understand how bad this thing getting. A man who voted against me and took pride in saying, there's a need for change, Kerry, and I'm going to make sure all of us will get voted out. Stop me in Olive Lodge to say, Skipper, that man bad, though. I didn't know he did so bad. And I was not by myself. I can call some names. I can ask them. Peter Gibson, Jefferson Payne, Jefferson somewhere about here. Kevin Blackett was out there. And the man said, look, let me tell you, there's a lady whose husband got injured in a car accident. And I told her, go to the man who's the representative and see if he could do something called the lady ain't working and the husband seriously injured, not getting any satisfaction from the insurance, no money ain't coming in. And you know what he told the poor lady? You ain't want a job. You see how you look. Well, you could get money doing other things. That is a fact. And it was said to me in the presence of witnesses, Liz, ask the man in the black jacket standing up next to you. Huh? That is the kind of thing that happens in St. James Central. It's a fact. And it gets worse than that. In King's Village, I could take you from this place now, and I ain't calling the lady name, but we all know the plight of some of our elderly since this government stopped doing the kind of work that we used to do about here to fix houses for old people. And her house falling down around her. And that reprobate, when she asked me, she asked me, come here, Carrie Simmons, come inside here and look around. I went in. I said, but the situation is, somebody's headlights are on S5653. Turn off your headlights. You might not get to drive out of here tonight. But Redmond Village is a warm and lovely area, so you will be looked after. You'll be all right. No. She said, come in here, Carrie. And I looked around the house. I said, but listen, I am not in government, but I know people who they run with that helpful to the Barbados Slave Party. And I picked up the phone and began to call. I almost called the man's name. And if I call his name out here, they will run his way tomorrow. So I ain't telling you who I call. And she said, no call nobody. I can get it though. It's about why you asked me to come in and look at it. I don't want to hear what it is that you had to say. Because the man that ran against you come in here. And when I show him the same thing that you show, you know what he tell me? He ain't do like you and said he can get help. Hey, he tell me not even a good cockroach thing are living here. These things cut me to my gut's core because it tells you of the attitude of absolute contempt that is brought to the issue of parliamentary representation by that rat who is running about out here and has the audacity to say that he should be given a second term. Now, I ain't come to waste a lot of time on him because we have to go back to a path of development, and I want to talk you and walk you through that. But you need to know that there are some things that can't continue to happen. I do not know how Val, who would have been selling down there at the canteen, could be treated in such an inhumane way. Night after Friday night after Saturday night, you all would have gone down there to that canteen and get a little food. To expand a highway, they had to move her. But you know, they gave her 2 days notice to move. And then gave her a false promise that she would be relocated. Work start down there how long ago? Nearly a year. And they have not looked back at her yet. Because small people matter nothing to Cornwall Hudson. The plight of those who are small and are suffering and struggling matters nothing. And we have a situation where that highway has now stood in the way of building the vendors mall that Liz Thompson and I sat alongside Cynthia Ford with the planning people and the architects, and everything was left in design and prepared. Liz right here, you could ask her. It's a fact. We had the vendors mall designed, planned, prepared, and election come, and the mall was to service you and the people in St. James South and people from St. Thomas who were supposed to have access to opportunities to do things that help them make little money for themselves. If you want to do cosmetology, you had a little kiosk in there. And we had promised Bandit that you would cut hair in there. Huh? People selling food in there. And that economic opportunity robbed by a bigot political hypocrite who cares nothing about the poor people, but get there and lords it off over you. A disgrace, if ever there was one. An absolute and complete abject disgrace. And that vendor's mall opportunity has passed, but not for good. Because a vote for Kerry Simmons on the 21st of February is a vote to make sure a vendor's mall get built for the people about here. I say so. Test me on that. The same way I tell you that the Bagatelle field had to get fixed, the vendor's mall got to go there. And I am saying to you that it is even worse on the question of housing. You know, Liz and I were able to get Hoyt's new development sorted out. And there are 40 stage 2, 42 or 43 houses. Not true? And in stage 1, you got about 30-something. Then in Arch Hall, 40 house spots went to people from in Arch Hall. Because we took the position, if you had to suffer with the dump and all the problems of the dump, you get them first choice. That's how I approached it. But we left plots of land. I give you an example of on the brow there by Q-Land, overlooking that lovely Bagatelle field. There are about 8 house spots there that have been allocated to nobody. 5 long, worthless years, Cornwall. And you have done nothing to take those house spots, which are defined and demarcated with boundaries for each and every one of them. Why are the people in Redmond Village who want their own housing solutions being deprived? Huh? But I know, no, he's not sleeping. Not only sleeping, he sleep everywhere. Got to Welch's school graduation in the front row, he went sleep. Got to a funeral, he near drop over, I hit the head and the people coughing. He is a complete waste. That's a fact when I see you in church sleeping too. I come here, I am not going to lie on him tonight. And y'all don't want to make me behave bad now. Listen, and perhaps the very worst insult of all is what he did to the folks from Hoyt's Village and Bagatelle. No, it ain't that he do nothing. It is that his mouth became like an Arctic river. It was frozen. And you know, at Bagatelle, the worthless people who formed the Cabinet of Barbados got together on on the basis of a piece of paper that Dennis Lowe called a cabinet paper, and agreed to give to Andrew Boyner and his brother, and I ain't come here to quarrel with Boyner, but they agreed to give Boyner that Bagatelle metal dump in exchange for 9 acres of land, 21 acres of land that the government of Barbados own you, full of metal that's selling at 5,000 United States dollars per pound. Ton. But he, and they got plenty tons down in there. You do the arithmetic. But he 50 years worth of metal. But he then decided that he is not going to say a word when folks from Hoyt's Village, some of whom went to him personally and said, Skipper, people have started to do excavation down in the dump, and all in front of the house, all inside the house, all in the toilet, all in the bedroom. A woman carried me and showed me her sheets. I was frightened because she said, keep coming in the house, Carrie. And I go a little further. Keep coming, Carrie. And I go in the bedroom. Keep coming, Carrie. I said, look, I am here on political business. But all the sheets, she didn't tell no lie, all the sheet brown with the dust. And I said, but these things can't be right. And you know, the man did not raise a finger and said not a word. And then what happens? I investigate the thing. And Liz, you had the Ministry of Environment. I realized you cannot do something like this without having an environmental impact assessment done. the law requires that if you can change the use of the metal dump from a place where metal was just being collected, but now you want to start a recycling facility, and a recycling facility is a useful thing in Barbados, but God comply with the law. And there was no environmental impact assessment done. And the second thing is that the town planner put in writing that he knew nothing about it. But somehow, Cabinet had allowed the miners to start doing whatever they feel like doing in this country. So a different set of laws apply to them than what would apply to you. Because anytime you do anything, so if you go home tomorrow morning and you start belling up on your house without town planning permission, you are in trouble. So we reach a stage where now Cornwall ain't doing nothing. And the people were forced, including some here tonight. That gentleman there will tell you I ain't telling the lies. Andrew Williams, one of the people who came and filed documents in court to sue the government of Barbados for unfairing them 6 months ago. And you know that these reptiles who formed the government have not responded to a word in contempt of the court orders that they file responses with dispatch so that the case can get underway. Because the Prime Minister, he's party to it. The Prime Minister, Mr. Integrity, Mr. Reliable, Mr. Trustworthy, he is one of the people being sued by the people in Hoyts Village and has treated them with contempt. Huh? And not only him, the Attorney General, then you got the fellow Lowe, who is an intellectual fraud, Mr. Lowe. He's the only man in the world that get a master's degree from a university that does not offer masters. The only man. I can say so with impunity. And then these people, and Michael Ashley, a great Michael Ashley. Huh? Michael Ashley, who will loiter every Saturday up at the American Airlines desk. You see Michael Ashley up there, and man, you going through Miami? I would like you to stop at JC Penney, come let I go to US. Or why you bringing the jeans? You going through Miami? I would like you to go in at PLS. Or why you bringing some shoe size thing? Michael Ashley, why would you not go and get on an American Airlines plane and travel to the United States of America? Tell the people why you won't get on an American Airlines plane, Michael Ashley. What prohibits you? Huh? But I am going back to this thing with Cornwall. Because you know the worst part of that. The worst part of it is that there are 15 people over there in the Hoyts who wrote to the government of Barbados. Their parliamentary representative knows about it. That to the extent that he can be accused of being a representative. People wrote to the government and said, look, you see this where the stage end? That is my land. But the dump is all the way over here behind the back of the stage. You have encroached. And you got to fix that because I am losing 30 and 40 square feet of my land. And it got value. It means something to me. I spend enough money to buy it. And any of you who own a piece of land and somebody start encroaching on it would do the same thing. But these vagabonds, these indecent vagabonds who say they must get a second term, who say they are reliable and trustworthy, you know that they pick up the people land along with the dump and transfer it to proper port without reference to the people who initiated the complaint. So that if you own that land, all of a sudden you wake up a morning and hear, well, your issue with the government ain't no more issue, because you got an issue with proper port, because he's the boy who controlling it. That is how they treat you. And if that is how Cornwall as an MP could behave and sit in a cabinet, and this issue began in March 2012, and we are in February of 2013. For 11 months, that nincompoop did nothing to stand in defense of the people he was elected to represent. How the hell could he ask for another term in government? But having nothing to show, he comes out here and goes down a road that I would not walk if I were him. He invested plenty time in Hoyt's Village, out here, and I believe tonight in Fitz Village from reports I get from the 30 people who were at the meeting. 20, sorry. Accounting in US. And he is all of a sudden presuming to give me lectures on my matrimonial affairs. And I say, you know, I will hear you, Cornwall, but I know your marriage, like mine, has had its ups and downs. And I know your marriage, like mine, has been the subject of a lot of gossip and speculation. But I know my marriage ain't produced no outside children. I know that. I didn't come here for that. But they continue to go down a road that does not help you. You know that I was asked by a resident of Hoyt-Stairs, how does these things get said on a platform? How does that help my 24-year-old son who has an engineering degree but can't get work in Barbados? I was asked in Fitz Village by a lady whose daughter has 7 O-levels and for the last 6 months has been unemployed, can't get work, part of the 16,000 sent home under the Democratic Labour Party. And instead of coming and speaking to you in language that will help you feel there are solutions, they, like that clown, Irene Sandyford Garner, a clown. She is a clown. She has this fixation with me. She tells people that if she did marry to me, she would put poison in my tea. I say to Irene, you know, first of all, I can't picture myself being married to you. But if in fact I ever was, I would drink the tea. Yeah? And these, but I don't trouble them. I don't trouble them. But they feel that they're going to come snapping at my heels. A little green girl like Irene. And I feel that we have serious things to talk about, ladies and gentlemen. I want to tell you where I wish to go with you in this constituency. We have roads. Let me begin here in Redmond Village. I want to give you the commitment that rural development did not send officers out here 5 years ago for no useful purpose, to take measurements and secure permissions from landowners for no useful purpose, to ask people who are living in homes whether would put up with a little inconvenience for no useful purpose. Roads that were committed to be done in Redmond Village and have not been done must be done. Let me start there. I also want to go back to the question of the sporting infrastructure. Because in Hoyt's Village, we left office in 2008, and Owen Arthur had just either finished or partially completed the estimates. And in those estimates, the sum of $80,000 was allocated to put lights on the Hoyt's Village playing field. It grieves me that 5 years later, young men as recently as this evening, tonight, this date in history, were scrimmaging, playing football on that field in absolute darkness. It should not be. The biggest playing field in St. James outside of Trent's, it should not be. But in 2013, that is the plight of those folks. It got to get fixed. That playing field must be floodlit as a first order of business. We're going down the hill where we left a hard court at Fitz Village. And I invite any of you to go and look at that hard court tomorrow. The hard court has not been touched in 5 years. In 5 years, the backboards on the hard court rotten out, both sides. The court got in cracks. It has been left without any maintenance whatsoever. a hard court that was put in there in order to give people in Fitz Village the same or the equal opportunity to play and develop skills in volleyball and netball and basketball as happens in the Pine and in Deacons and all the way around Barbados. What can these people be talking about when they say to you they're building society? You can't build society if you rob your young people of recreational and sporting opportunities. And all that this idiot comes to tell you he did is to put a slab of concrete next to the hard court. But Marcette, you know what you're talking about. Huh? A slab of concrete. I know he's fooling. Run down there 2 weeks ago. Election call when it was a Wednesday or Thursday, and the next Tuesday he put in a slab of concrete saying this which part a player part is going to go. This is where we're going to have a player part. And the belly is hanging out there, so he rocking back. A player part will be going there. Now, he thinks that people are foolish. And I am saying to you that these types of approaches to community development have to stop. And we got to get real. I have been talking, and let me say it to you now where I am going. I have been talking to pastors in churches, or reverends in charge, priests in charge, if you're using the Anglican language, of churches. We got one right there at St. John the Baptist. A lovely new annex built on. Let me take the politics out of this. Members of that congregation, let us take the politics out of this. I want to know that that annex is available for young men in Redmond Village, Stone's Throw away, men in Hoyts Village, young women in Redmond Village and in Hoyts Village who need access to a facility at 3 and 4 in the evening when they come home from work, where they can learn a useful skill. There is no skills training taking place for the young people of this constituency anywhere in St. James Central. It is a disgrace. And you cannot build a society where you have young men in their 20s, some with children, and every time you see them, there's a sigh of hopelessness and despair. I going on the beach to see if I can get $1. I going somewhere else, going in the dump to scrimmage for a little metal. When we can train young people in productive skills, that's what's happening in Jamaica. That's what's happening in Trinidad. There's a thing that they call a national vocational qualification, where you come into the community that you live in, and you set up, and if a man wants to learn masonry, he gets the opportunity to be trained by a master mason from in his community. People being invited to give back. Don't tell me it can't happen. And I know people who have told me on this campaign they are prepared to work with me in doing it. Could take you into Lanes Gap, Paynes Bay, where there's a young man who is a welder. Said, Kerry, if you could get it up and running, they got me every evening. Some boy want to learn welding. Them could make some money. There's a lady in the Heights with an MBA, a Master's of Business Administration. Her only interest after work done, she tell me, is to be able to work with some young girls in the community so as to help teach them how to start and run a business effectively. We were canvassing in Kings Village a few evenings ago, and we met a young lady who called Hudson a clown. Don't tell me the eyes call you so. She is who did it. And you know why? Because she asked him about work and assistance with work. And he tell her, "Ma, but you're only 19, you could wait." She is interested in doing cosmetology. But happily for me, I was walking with a gentleman whose wife is a cosmetologist, and we have made the connection for her to begin a period of apprenticeship. But this type of thing needs to be happening across the constituency. When the little children continue to wait on a big guts lazy man who will not even look back at you. And it is true here. It is a problem in the Heights. It is a problem as far north as Greenwich Village, Morgan. It is true all down in Seaview. We went into Prospect the other day, Liz, and you see about 20 young men sitting on a step in the middle of the day, in the middle of the week. And I said, but these things can't be right. It is a bank holiday. All of them in tech vacation the same time. They are unemployed and are becoming hopeless in the land of their birth. Things dread, but we got to do more than just vote red. We got to turn this thing around. And that is why the manifesto, as you heard Liz talking about, says that you're going to help small startup businesses. When you start, don't humbug you with that sort of tax at all for 3 years. Give them the opportunity to get up and get off the ground and start to earn a living, man. If you don't do that, then your only solution is where Framble Short told you he want to see you go. When he said on a political platform, if you want money in your pocket, consult a drug lord. And that cannot be the road that we ask our young people to walk. And if Owen Alpha was so drunk as to say so, I will got to publicly distance myself from him. So if George Hudson Cornwall can't distance himself from the foolishness that is Prime Minister talk, I can only assume that the two of them are of the same mind. That is not a developmental path that works as far as I'm concerned. That is tomfoolery. Gets you nowhere fast. And I also feel that we got to now get serious. This morning, Jefferson Payne was with me, I believe. A fellow called Anthony Yard, I don't know if he's here, he was with me. And Alvin Brooms. I call in the names of people so when I could ask them, man. People from in these communities. We were in Fitz Village. And we met a man. And I can take my time because I want you to understand what I'm talking about. We met a man who was riding a silver electric scooter. I'd never seen anything like it. A motorcycle, but all silver, no engine, working off of batteries, no noise, no air, no pollution, riding it up and down the road. I said, but what's this? He told me, I make it. I said, you made it? And he explained how fellas in Fitz Village that are on the block, that are unemployed tonight, that have nowhere to go to work tomorrow morning, sat with him and designed and made an electric scooter. And I took a ride on it. Thing powerful, near threw me off. Then we went down the hill and I come back up the hill. And after a while, I said, but I did 2 or 3 of them. I said, but how far can this get me? He said, man, I give you 10 miles. And I had to stop and think. Those people have skills. That is a talent lying in Fitz Village, waiting to be tapped, waiting to be developed. He should be making them by the 20, by the 100. He should be benefiting from government pumping investment assistance into his business, and he employing the same people from the same community that helped him design the thing. A scooter working off of computer batteries. No noise pollution, no air pollution, made here in this constituency by young men who have nothing to do tomorrow morning. Young men who have nowhere to go to work tomorrow morning. And I ask you if that can be acceptable. When I see these things, I say to myself that we are failing a generation I consider myself to be a part of. Because in my mid-40s, when I see fellas 30 years old doing these things, that's like a little brother to me. It is a certain skill. It is an ability to do wonderful things for Barbados. People would be able to use that 10-mile thing, and if you can refine it more, get 20 or 30 miles out of it, and then charge it back. We are now looking to spend millions of dollars to bring in motor cars that do the same thing that this man stopped in Fitz Village and built for himself. But we have a parliamentary representative who cannot find it possible to do one thing, take one step to give them the assistance to develop themselves. I want to put an end to that. I am in public life to try to put an end to that and to try to develop those people who are interested in self-development and promote those people who want to promote their own economic well-being so that they can pull themselves up by their bootstraps and be all that they can be in this, the land of their birth. And if that is not what you should be in politics to be about, then I am wrong, but not only me. The Constitution of Barbados will got to be wrong because it tells you that you must in law look out for the least, the lesser people. The Bible would got to be wrong because it tells you unto the least of these. That is what society in a civilized country must be about. But we continue to fail a generation that is not whatless, that is not indifferent, but is becoming hopeless because of the fact that they do not have access to assistance that they must get urgently. Now, this Barbados Labour Party commits itself in our manifesto to making sure that we build communities in the way I am explaining to you, and that we give ownership of some of the centers in your community to you. That your pavilion over there in Bagatelle should be open and the keys kept by persons from within your community, that if you want to go over there in the middle of summertime, summer vacation, at 10 o'clock, it ain't shut up and some boy tell you you can't come in there, that you should be able to go in there and use it for creative purposes. But to build communities in that nature, you have to have working with you politicians who are prepared to sit with you and help you build community organizations. I did it when I worked with the Bagatelle, Welch's Bagatelle Sports Club. We built out an organization and shaped a constitution. We're now doing it in the Heights with a Heights Sports Club. We're now starting a third division football team in Heights Village. And we're going to keep doing it all through this constituency. Because one of the vulgar things about Cornwall is that he makes no time to work with people building out the community that we got to live in. Now, speaking of community, I come to what I consider to be the most praiseworthy thing. I have a dream that I have discussed with several people from St. James South and Central, because we border for a few miles. And I need to let you know this. I'm going to start by calling the names. We have produced Ryan Hines. We have a Barbados cricket captain. We have produced Philo Wallace, a Barbados and West Indies captain. We have produced Courtney Brown, a Barbados and West Indies captain. We have produced Desmond Haynes, a Barbados and West Indies captain. We have produced Franklin Stevenson, a West Indies fast bowler, but I don't think he ever captain. And there are several more. But what have we done between, let's say, West Terrace, you would have Carlisle Best down there, and all the way back up to Redmond Village? Literally hundreds of excellent and outstanding sportsmen from this small catchment area. Not only cricket, Andrea Blackett, a world-class Olympic hurdler from Indy Heights. We have to do something to make our young people recognize that they too can reach those high heights that so many that come from about here just like them reached as well. And the proposal is to have a walk of fame where we begin from, let us say for argument, the pavilion there that named after Courtney Brown, and go down to the pavilion that named after Des Haynes. And as you walk along it, you have plaques placed on your sidewalk, as they do for the movie stars in Hollywood, so that the world may come and see the great things that have come out of these two neighboring constituencies of St. James Central and St. James South. But more importantly, that the young people are given something to aspire to. That if you go into school at Welch's, or if you go in school at Good Shepherd or West Terrace, that you know that from in your midst there have been great men and women who have led their communities and their region in sports. And the reason why I place that emphasis on sports and talk to you tonight about developing sporting infrastructure is because it is the highest paying business in the world. The highest paying business in the world. Play football well, and you can get transferred in the Premier League for millions and millions of pounds. And we got to understand that we must now come to a point where you use the government departments to connect our young people to opportunities to develop themselves in entertainment and culture and in sports, not just here, but overseas. And the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, if you go in our manifesto, you will see that is one example we use, where we will use our overseas missions so that we got an embassy in Washington and a consular office in New York, and they are playing semi-professional and professional football in the United States. Everybody might not get to England, but if we can connect our people through our mission so that they do apprenticeship programs and attachments to overseas clubs, we give young men in Barbados an opportunity with a footballing skill to get some money out of that skill, compete alongside some of the best in the world. Is there anything wrong with that? We have to be prepared in this constituency to use the facilities already existing in the constituency to give our young people opportunities for self-development. And I asked, why is it that you got a fire station in Arch Hall, but there's not one man from Redmond Village, not one man from Arch Hall Bennett, not one man from Seaview who is over 16 years of age but ever did a temporary job attachment in the fire service right there in Arch Hall. Same thing with the post office down in Old Town. Same thing with so many other installations that we have in this constituency and others. But we got, ladies and gentlemen, to save the young people. That is the economy of tomorrow. That is where we are going to build our way out of this recession and take this country forward. And you have to understand that one of the good things that this Labour Party commits itself to do is to make sure that the University of the West Indies reaches its maximum potential. I am told that the leader is coming. He will be here in 10 minutes. Please, ladies and gentlemen, he has a major address to give, so be patient. Now, I was telling you about UWI. Its relevance to St. James Central, and may I also say to you, its relevance to those of you who feel that you could use your house to make a little money. The University of the West Indies has a roll of 10,000. We wish to increase the student population by 5,000 to 15,000 at UE. It can be done, according to Professor Beckles, without any further building of new classrooms and lecture theaters and so on. The capacity is there. We want to bring in those 5,000 people from outside of the Caribbean. People who come here from Canada, people who come here from North America, people who come here to spend some foreign exchange. And we want them to be renting space in Oakwood Park and in Heights. And we want them to be renting in Prior Park so that Pastor Drake's over yonder will be able to say, look, I got a big able house here. 3 or 4 people could be using the little apartment downstairs, making some money for him. And equally, when the fellas want to have a drink, they come out here by Black Pond and line by the rum shop, making some money for Pond. And when the fellas want to get a little girlfriend and carry them out, they go down by Wendy's Snack Bar in Fitz Village on a Friday night for the karaoke and make little money for the people working down there too. And we use the university for the first time as a foreign exchange earner and a stimulus to the Barbados economy. These are the things, ladies and gentlemen, that we want to do. But what we are not prepared to do is to take our hands off the steering wheel and simply say, as this government says, better cannot be done. There's nothing. Mr. Murray, tell that lady next to you to start looking at me with her tongue out like that. It is confusing me. I will lose my rhythm. I am made of flesh and blood. And what was saying, huh? Lord have mercy. How sweet it is. Anyhow, we will not take our hands off of the steering wheel. This government fails you in a major way. They say to you, better cannot be done. It is what it is, and you gotta left it so. And if that is all there is to governance, then you need not have an election. I mean, when they do intervene, they don't intervene to make sure that you get more money, that you do better. They intervene to help the people over yonder there in Welches cost you less. And you know that today, no water in Redmond Village because cost you less running pipes. The other day, people from Welches School home in the middle of the week because cost you less running pipes. Cost you less comes here. They are given preferential and differential treatment, special treatment that you can't get here in Barbados with part you're born. Being given to Canadians who come with a lot of money in the pocket, a pocket that stretches down by their ankle, and they can make good friends with people in the Democratic Labour Party. And you may better understand now, if you didn't understand before, how it is that some Democratic Labour Party politicians can give away 1,000 flat screen TVs. Liz, you in New York, you ain't know what's happening down here at Christmas. 1,000 flat screen TVs give away in parts of Barbados. 1,000 iPads. When you were in cabinet, you ever had anything sort of give away? A Christmas party at which 300 bicycles give to the children. One man that didn't win the lotto. One man that ain't known to be a gambler. So no boy, you know, he ain't breaking a millionaire out at Sandy Lane or up in Royal Westmoreland. But and I, to the best of my knowledge, he ain't robbing a bank. But walking about Barbados, giving away as Santa Claus himself could not afford to give away. But cost you less is here. And special arrangements are in place. And what are those special arrangements? That everything, if you got anybody here got a small business, anybody importing anything, if you're importing something, you got to pay import duty on it. You got to pay a value-added tax if you're registered. Well, there you go, sir. You know the thing. But cost you less 15 long years and paying no import duty. 15 years and paying no value-added tax, even as your value-added tax has been carried up by 2.5%. And we say to you that those things are wrong. And they're not only wrong, they're foolish. And they will humbug Barbados sooner rather than later. Because we live in a world where international trade agreements are in place, and we are part of them. And if you treat a Canadian company coming to Barbados that special way, it means now, because of the commitments that we've given to Europe, that we got to treat any European company that come here competing against cost you less the exact same way with the same special privileges that we've given to cost you less. So we will be looking out only for foreigners while our own people are sucking salt. And who will cost you less compete against? The private sector who are employing Barbadians. Who are employing Barbadians? Courts, standard distributors, the cost of manning. Across the road here, automotive art. All of those things from car parts to hardware. Cost you less will be bringing in. Supermarket, grocery products, cost you less bringing in. But they are given an arrangement that none of you can benefit from. And this Democratic Labour Party continues to abuse you time after time. and still come back and say they want 5 more years. Dems now, Dems should be never again. They went further with that species of idiot called Peter Jills. And you will remember well, Liz, our encounters with that man when you were in the Senate. And you know, Peter Jills is the most unwholesome type of individual in public life. But he writes a letter to a Barbadian, cursing off the man because he dared to employ people from the Barbados Labour Party, or who Jills believe might support the Barbados Labour Party. In this, the land of your birth, in 2013, a man behaving as though he is in South Africa in the apartheid days, cursing people because they get a job opportunity. Because, what the company name? Not Costilla, Carib Cable. Carib Cable is only supposed to employ people from the Democrat Labour Party. And when these things happen, you have to ask yourself, how does this society continue in this way? When is enough going to be enough? But all of them are led by a man who is now posturing as being more trustworthy and dependable and Mr. Nice Guy. Where was Fumble Short when Peter Jills was writing, telling a black man that he's a boy and that he needs to learn to toe the line and do as he's told and follow orders or get out the people company? Peter Jills wrote that in a letter. He wrote that. Oh, I can't remember the fella name now. Oh, Lord, what the fella name now? I ain't even got your letter with me, Liz. Whitehead, that's correct. Magnus Whitehead. You know Magnus? A well-qualified man. But that half-white man, Jilts, that off-white man, treated Magnus Whitehead as though he's a little boy in the yard. Curse he down. Learn to toe the line. Do as you're told. This is the agenda of the Democratic Labour Party. All that he put in the letter. I am not effing happy with what is happening. And this crap and so on and so forth he went down with. Curse, stink, stink, stink. Curse like how, yeah, the F word was used. Curse like how Chris Sinclair behaved the other night when he was speaking to my constituent, Miss Fowler. And Don Valens does it, but Don Valens is a different type of filth. He is just completely filthy. And he will be exposed for all he is very soon. Very soon. Pornville. But we have to look at the Barbados we're building. And Fundle Stewart has no leg to stand on when he comes to you and tells you that he's all this Mr. Nice Guy. When he allows a cabinet to function in the way they do. We have up at the Water Authority headquarters, Inatech, building a headquarters on the understanding. I want you all to understand how this thing happened. You know, the 3 companies were invited to express an interest in building the new Water Authority headquarters. Of those 3, 2 said, Mala, the terms of reference and so on are not clear, and you're going to have to let the documents come out again because we are not clear exactly what it is they want. But nobody can get back to them. Almost as though it was a preconceived thing. This special company get the work without reference to the other people who had expressed an interest. And they got the work on the understanding that they would have the resources to build it and then to lease it back and transfer at the end of a 20-year period to the government of Barbados. But having gotten the contract on that understanding, they then went back to the Water Authority and said to them, well, we ain't got no money, we can't raise the money, can y'all pay us the money to start the project? The Water Authority could as well build it itself. Because the whole purpose of the bill on lease transfer is that government ain't got to go in its pocket to take out nothing to pay. You pay back over 20-year period like a mortgage. So these people got a contract, then could not honor the terms that they were expected to honor, and get out licking because the water authority pick up your money and hand to them. $10 million or more has been spent out there, and you can't see nothing come out of the ground yet. And then David Eswick as the minister in charge. He's so tied up and wrapped up in covering up anybody, any effort to look into this thing and unravel the mess. He writes a letter to his staff telling them under no circumstances will you meet with the Minister of Finance to discuss any aspect of this Water Authority headquarters project. Of course it is unheard of. And you have a prime minister who parades up and down Barbados. He is more than anybody else. All of we should be at the drug lord, and only he is pure and holy, washed in the blood of the Lamb. And he can't stop Eswick and Sinclair from gouging out each other's throat. And in the meantime, a project that should cost the government $35 million is now all the hell up in $65 million and climbing. And every passing week that incompetent mule from Bashur sits there and does nothing, it is costing you at least $10,000 more every week. And that has been the stalemate at the Water Authority now for nearly a year and a half. And you ask yourself, how do these people have the testicles, man, to come and stand up before you and say, give us a second term? It is unheard of that a cabinet could have a minister of finance who has authority in law to have oversight over how the government money is being spent, being told by a minister of equal rank, led both of them by a prime minister, that my staff are not coming to no damn meeting with you. You have no right to investigate or inquire into what I am doing in my ministry. I will spend the people money how I feel. That is what is happening in Barbados. But they want another term. And as we had to explain in Silver Sands last night, then the worst of it, there's nothing to rein in the excess. You have a fellow named Dennis Lowe who sat as a chairman of a board all the time you were paying him to be a minister. Pick up a chair inside the Sanitation Service Authority boardroom and chaired a meeting and presided over a meeting at which a decision was made to send a truck to be repaired for $75,000 without reference to any other quotations. And when he was warned by his permanent secretary and senior staff that you can't do it that way, star, with the money in your piggy bank, you can't just say that you sending it over yonder to get fixed for 75 grand. At least let us get 2 other quotations to see if it can be done for 20 or 25. He ain't interested in nothing, so he's sending it which part he wants. Send it and be damned to you. And a man was forced to write, he's from St. Thomas, fella named Chandler, Wesley. Yeah, the same man that ain't got the degree that he say he got. The same man. A political fraud. And worse. And he then, Wesley Chandler, wrote a letter to the Prime Minister saying, Skipper, I now have to resign. I am a loyal member of the Democratic Labour Party. Put that in writing. But I feel I have a duty to distance myself from these wrong things that taking place. And he wrote to the Prime Minister himself, Mr. Reliable, Mr. Trustworthy, Mr. Nice Man, who you can count on to do nothing. And the man did not blink an eyelid at Dennis Lowe. Dennis Lowe is still a minister tonight. Dennis Lowe is still doing what we feel like in the country, and you're no better off. And in almost every ministry, you see the worthlessness of this government. Down at the port, molasses tanks. Liz, the had Williams Industries wrote a letter saying that they would build one new molasses tank because the molasses tanks fell into disrepair. There are 3 of them. One could be replaced for $2.75 million, and the other 2 could be painted and fixed up and made worthy for another 10 years for another, let us say, $250,000. And Williams engineers certified that in writing. But that ain't good enough for the you know, the people in Democratic parties behave as though this island's economy is a pig trough and they're jucking the snout. Then they want to get all 4 trotters and a slapping about it. Get as much as they could get out of it. That's how they behave. And they went and they committed themselves to going to their friends at Pre-Conco. Because beer come go be in the dough. And this sweetheart arrangement, 3 brand new molasses tanks being built for a sum total of $52 million Barbados dollars in this, the worst recession of all time. But $2 million could have done to keep the molasses tank serviceable and repair one that had to be replaced. So instead of spending roughly $2.75 million, let's call it $3 million, you are now committed to licking out $50-something million. Steel in there. There's a lot of steel in there. Don't mind it is a concrete tank. It got in plenty steel. And everywhere you go, ministry by ministry, you are seeing the worthlessness being exposed in this government. The Hamila walkover or Hamila crossover and cross back over. Yeah, but Pre-Conco built that too. The only company that making money in Barbados today is Pre-Conco. It's a fact. And in this constituency, we have contractors who owned their own cement mixers and scaffolding and had 20 men working for them. And tonight, scaffolding sell. Cement mixers sell. Workers gone home. And these people want 5 more years. They ain't satisfied that they're virtually decimated Barbados. They want 5 more years to kill you. I had to tell somebody on the motorcade today, things dread. If you keep voting Dems, you're soon gonna dead. And it goes on and on. And you know, it isn't only those ministries involved in construction. The worthlessness takes place in the tourism sector. And I got to talk a little bit about that. Because they got people from around here that just get work down on that coast. Where tonight, people are on short week, working 2 days a week in the hospitality industry, 3 days a week. My friend here, Kevin, could confirm that to you. We have in this audience tonight, I just saw her walk past here, a young lady who was sent home from a hotel along with 3 or 4 others because the hotel ain't doing the business. In February, and the Barbados Labour Party is saying to you that we got to make hotel rates cheaper because it isn't that the tourists are not flying, they are flying. They come here, they go through the in-transit lounge, get on a Liat, and they go which part room rates are cheaper. They go down to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. That's a fact. Get the same sun and virtually the same beach. They are passing through Barbados to go elsewhere. And we are saying to you that the value-added tax on the rooms going to come down as part of a Barbados Labour Party commitment to make room rates cheaper in Barbados. And we put it in our manifesto as well, that we also going to make sure that we reinvest in this thing they call staycations. So that if it is that you don't want to go overseas, but you want to get a little vacation, let us say, for example, Liz, if you ain't going back up north too soon after the BLP win on Thursday, then what will happen, or what could happen, is that you spend a little week in a hotel here and luxuriate a little bit, put on your bikini and sit down by the pool. But we have to have tax arrangements in place that encourage you to do that. So that if the tourists are not coming in large numbers, then at least you're making sure Bajans coming in the hotel and enjoying themselves, but you're keeping Barbadian people at work. That's what you have to do, keep Barbadians at work. But they are being sent home by the dozen in February, when the hotel should be full. And the other thing we commit ourselves to doing is to working with what they call financial partners who are not traditional, non-traditional financial partners. And you approach them, people like the Chinese government and so on, and you try to build a tourism investment fund, a fund that will help us build out and refurbish new rooms, new capacity for our hotel plant. One of the problems in Barbados is that a lot of the hotels have very old plant, what they call the rooms and all the other things that the tourists use, facilities. And you want to refresh it and make it nicer. And you also got to build out new attractions. Because this country, having been savaged by the Democratic Labour Party, has lost tourism attractions by the dozen. When Rudy Grant was working in the Ministry of Tourism, Rudy, I am sure you would agree, they had an MV Harbour Master. It gone now. When Rudy would have been in the Ministry of Tourism, he knew that the folks who had an interest in the environment and nature could go up to the Graham Hall Nature Sanctuary. It gone now. And there was a thing called Ocean Park, where when I was the MP, we had an annual camp. We had a community council. I used to have a carry care camp. $1 a day, 100 children for 6 weeks at Hoyts Village. Carry care camp. And we, for the sum of $1 a day, made sure that 100 children had a camp. We used people like Miss Smith, who was a teacher at Welch's, and several others to work with the little children as guardians and counselors during the period of time that they were at camp for the 6 weeks. We didn't rely on no government. We didn't need that. We didn't have to pay a camp caterer $15,000 a week or a month to feed the little children. A lot of people contributed voluntarily to look after the little children from this community. But all of a sudden, under the Democratic Labour Party, that done with. And one of the things we used to do is to take the little children up to Ocean Park. Now, Ocean Park gone. And you had 2 helicopters flying around this island. All 2 of them crash land. Them gone too. And this country desperately needs new tourism attractions. One of the reasons why we're finding it hard to marshal the influx of tourists that we would like to get is because we have become, quite frankly, an old tourism destination. And we got to face that and correct it. But what have you heard from the Democratic Labour Party in this campaign that tells you how you're going to attack and solve these critical problems that are facing the bread and butter industry of this country? Thousands on this West Coast earn their living in tourism. And thousands of them have been failed tonight in the 3rd week of a campaign when tourism and its future should have been discussed from the government's platform. Not a word. But the Prime Minister tells you to take your woes not unto the Lord, but unto the drug lord. These are the things that we got to deal with. And these are the things that we have to fight to put right. And I'm saying to you that this question of how we build and carry Barbados forward is the most burning issue of the day, and quite frankly, I feel of our time. We have seen these people fail us, ladies and gentlemen, in almost every way. We have seen these people fail us in almost every ministry. The Attorney General's office is another one. You know, we have a police force. Not only the residents of the country, not only the citizens of the country had to carry the government to court, but our own police force had to carry the government to court. And the police force was compelled to take the government to court, or members of the force, because of the fact that the Democratic Labour Party has an institution that they call the Police Service Commission. The Commissioner of Police is charged with responsibility for superintending and managing his force. He is the professional. He knows who performs and who don't perform. He has a clear understanding of who should be promoted on the basis of merit and who should not, because everything reports up the ladder to him. But in the Democratic Labour Party, there's a different view. They see the police not as a civil institution for me and you, but as a political football for them. And so they have a set of people who sit on the Police Service Commission who decided that they are going to bypass the Commissioner of Police even as he is sitting at his desk at work. And they are going to determine for the Commissioner who are the people to get promoted. Them wrong things shouldn't happen. There should be no political interference in the only civil institution, civil security institution in the country. If anything happens to any of us tonight, there's only one entity that we call upon for protection and the maintenance of law and order, and that is the Royal Barbados Police Force. But what we have is a set of people in the Democratic Labour Party who determine that they are going to intervene politically to make sure they bypass the lawful authority of the Commissioner of Police, to ensure that they put in place those people at high level who they believe are more loyal to the Democratic Labour Party's interests than to the interests of transparency in policing in this country. And I say to you, you can go through them ministry by ministry. And Glenn Murray, how much more time do I have? You tell me 10 minutes, 15 minutes ago. Oh, I see. Okay. Well, I perhaps should not spare the most incompetent of them all. The man who took your taxpayers' fund and built a jacuzzi in his office. George Cornwall Hudson. Now, most of you go to work when it's bed for the morning, get in your car or get in the bus, and you go to work. And when you're done work, you come back home and you will bed again in the evening. Not George Hudson. George Hudson has taken $16,000 of the taxpayers' money and built in his ministerial office. Liz Thompson, you and I both know that none of so can happen when we was in the cabinet. We will get humbugged. The man take up money and refurbish his toilet in the ministerial office. And he put in a jacuzzi, if you please. Not any ordinary jacuzzi, but a 16-jet jacuzzi. So you get in water behind here, and you getting it up underneath here, and it coming all up underneath behind there, and every angle he feeling the water trickling down. I don't know if he smells frozen or not. I am not going there. But I am asking you, how in this, the worst recession of all times, could it be practical that he take up the taxpayers' money to do this in his If he do it in a bedroom home, I could understand. If he do it in a little private guest house, I can understand. If he went in Hoyts Village down by Alu and he put in the jacuzzi down there, I can understand. Huh? And he might then stop. He would not add he's out at 4. He could stop to 6. But the point is, he put it in his ministerial office. And I have asked repeatedly, who or what, George Hudson, do you carry in there that is so nasty that you're going to scrub them? That you need all this investment in water. And I want to tell you that is not the worst. He should be paying the bill personally. But that is not the worst. What is the worst is that you have that buffoon having presided over the loss of 2,700 jobs in the international business sector. 2,700 fellow citizens of ours are at home tonight because George Hudson is too incompetent to manage the Ministry of International Business properly. And on top of that, we have lost $1 billion United States in investment. Don't only take my word. There's a gentleman right in front of me in a khaki pants, a red shirt, and a black belt. Ask him how incompetently the Ministry of International Business has been run. So badly that the Chief Executive Officer of Invest Barbados broke ranks with the government that employs him. You want to understand what really happening about here, though? And that these vagabonds could expect to get another term? The civil servants themselves, the Chief Executive Officer of Invest Barbados, say, look, don't mind that I am employed by the government. I have a duty as a Barbadian to come clean and tell you what happening about here. And that is how we knew that people had made expressions of interest to do business in Barbados. And that 6 and 8 months passed, and the idiot ain't pick up a pen and write back to the people. They apply to the minister for all sorts of things. The idiot ain't pick up a pen, couldn't even do as much as to fart to demonstrate that he's still alive. Not even to fart to demonstrate that he's still alive. And the net result is that $1 billion United States dollars went elsewhere, bypassed this country. And for that, he should be rewarded with 5 more years in Parliament. To do what? To kill what? To kill we? It can't work. The man is a masterpiece of a study in failure. Absolute and complete failure. And not only the Chief Executive Officer of Invest Barbados, but also the Director of International Business. A fully fledged, appointed civil servant. Allow the nation to know that we had been warned by the organization of the OECD, what is it called? OECD, Economic Cooperation and Development, 6 times. They warned us 6 times that our legislation was not in order, that we were in danger of attracting international censure, that the countries of the world were looking at Barbados and saying, there are things you all need to do if you're going to be viewed as a clean jurisdiction for the purposes of international business. And 6 warnings passed. And that pathetic wretch sat and did nothing. Over a period of 8 months, this country was warned 6 times. And the Minister of International Business, George Cornwall Hudson, caused Barbados to come to a point where we were blacklisted and treated as though we were the worst of the worst. And people turned their backs on this country and carried their business elsewhere, when they could have been employing you and employing you. When there are young people in this constituency with degrees that can't get work. When there are job opportunities that have gone a begging, because Barbados has at the helm a set of people who are completely inept and incapable and incompetent. Why on earth would you inflict that on yourself again? And every ministry, as I say to you, tells us this sorry tale. Every single one of the ministries. And you know, the other day, we were treated to a very special case by a fella who lived right behind there called Steve Blackett. And Steve Blackett, he is a special case because of how foolish he is. He picked up the phone, calling on a call-in program, and said that he is sorry, that he told lies, that when they said they would do all the things they would do on the manifesto in 2008, they misled the public and should have come clean early. Why did we pick up the phone and say that he's sorry that they didn't tell the truth earlier, that some of the things were impossible? Why, Steve, with great respect, Star, we already knew that they were impossible. Where in the world do you get a mortgage to build a house and you don't pay interest on it? Where in the world is there an interest-free mortgage? Only in David Thompson's mind? That was the only place you get it? Where in the world do you get duty-free motor cars for every nurse and every teacher and every police officer and every postman? Only in David Thompson's mind. But they got into the game of telling big lies at election time. They're still playing that game all like, no, you know. They're still playing that game all like, no. And I want you to remember, Redmond Village, remember that the Barbados Labour Party was in office for 14 years and never touched bus fare. So why on earth would we be selling off the transport board? The Barbados Labour Party was in office for 14 years and not a fella in this housing area or in Haynesville saw rent go up. Why would we be selling off the NHC? We who did more than anybody else to make sure that we stood in the way of poor people having to carry a heavier load. We who did more than anybody else for 14 years. And the ignorance of the lie is what astounds me, that a man from as far north as St. Peter, whose people rely on the said same bus to get anywhere in Bridgetown or anywhere across Barbados, that a man from as far north as St. Andrew, a constituency held by the Barbados Labour Party, a man from as far east as St. Joseph, also held by the Barbados Labour Party, the farthest parishes are the ones that the Barbados Labour Party holds. Why would we unfair the people who have historically voted for us by taking out the transport board and putting it in somebody's hand to humbug the same people who continue to faithfully elect and re-elect the Barbados Labour Party? That don't make sense, but it is a nasty, tasty and juicy lie. The sort of thing that Chris Sinclair liked. That is the scratch grain that they feed to the Democratic Labour Party yard fowls. And that is what they feel politics should be about. And I think that I'm getting a little hoarse after this hour and 25 minutes. But I have enjoyed talking to you, ladies and gentlemen, walking you through not only that which I want to do, but that which my party wants to do, and refreshing your memory on the bad things that the Dems did to you. And I want you to be patient I want you to stand still and I want you to warmly welcome the next Prime Minister of Barbados, who on the 21st of February will be once again empowered by the people of this country and by the people of this constituency to lead this island of ours out of the